Whole Cross. Happy
Hey,
Friday.
happy Friday. How's it going?
It is going well. It's been a good day so far. Got some exciting plans this weekend. What do you have going on in the Hope life?
Well, when you are an entrepreneur, I just lose track of the weekdays and the weekends, so I tend to work. Um, I don't know. I am getting ready for a trip. So this coming week I will be flying to Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Okay, I've never been there for work or personal before. What's going on in Oklahoma City?
So I've been working with an organization there called Remerge, and they work with returning citizens, mothers primarily, who have been incarcerated. They've been released back into the community, and they work with them on all kinds of levels to reintegrate them back into society, reintegrate them back with their children, help them get their children back in their custody if they're not already, and then help them get job skills. I mean, you name it, this organization does it. It's really an amazing organization. So I go there next week. I'll be training the clients. I've been working with the clients on resiliency, workplace resiliency, life skills, and then I'm working with the team on trauma informed care. And then while I'm there, I'm meeting with another organization out of Comanche called Helping Hands, and they work with the same population that's about 2 or 3 hours away. So it's a really full week, and I'm excited though because these people are really wonderful. They do a lot of great for their community. So if you ever get a chance to go, I think it'd be worth it to just head out there and meet some really great people.
Yeah, how'd you get that connection? How'd that happen?
Actually, it was, I think it was 2024 Not Up, and I met Meg, and they invited me out. I went out and met with everybody on a trip, and then we created a year-long program to help the clients with the workplace readiness, resiliency, life skills, the staff with trauma-informed care. And then while I was there, I met the other organization, and I'm going back in August as their keynote for their prime organization fundraiser. So it's really awesome. I love when we go to these conferences and we get to meet new people, because I will tell you, Oklahoma, if you've never been, has a much different culture. It's
Mm,
really cool culture to get to experience. So I always love getting a chance to go back.
that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. What else you got going on, Hope? What else is coming going on in the cultivating hope universe?
Well, it's a really busy this starting this coming week. It's really busy, and I'm excited. As of yesterday, it was approved for me to in DeSoto County. So if you're listening from DeSoto, this affects you. Sponsored by American Red Cross and Hope DeSoto Long-Term Recovery Program, they have approved me to do what is called a cultivating a resilient community after disaster. So what this is going to do is provide a series of trauma-informed and resiliency building workshops for the county, open to every single person for free. Everybody up to the first 500 gets a free book of mine. So it's really amazing. So we'll be doing a series of at least 11 classes through now in May, and we're launching that. We're getting the final pieces together. Actually, you're the first one to hear about it publicly. So it's not been announced yet. So if you're listening, get ready for it. August is going to be our first class. We are getting the location and dates ready. And then every month we'll have more classes just at various locations and at various times. So people can come after work or on the weekend. So it's really exciting. I'm excited because the idea is not just, when a hurricane happens, and if you're Floridian, there's a lot of work to do when it comes to repairing homes and properties. But what gets neglected a lot of times is really building that resiliency within the community, the individuals. So these workshops are focused solely on building the individuals so that we build the community resilience.
Mm, I love that, Hope. And then resilience is something that I see a lot when you're posting on social media. what led you to say, hey, this is a message that I need to be able to integrate into everything I do? I know that's an important term for you and something you like to pass on to both young people and people of our age as well. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, the truth is a lot of people, Curtis, are talking about trauma. They are talking about how we are impacted, whether it's childhood trauma or other experiences we have throughout life. And I love the education. We do need to be educated on trauma. We do need to be educated on how to have a trauma-informed approach. But I asked myself a few years ago when I started really getting out there in the training world is, so how do we help people with trauma other than the therapeutic side, just the natural everyday side that anybody of any age can do? So I created what is known as the elements of resilience. So through these elements of resilience, this is how we help people bounce back and grow forward through adversity, trauma, barriers, whatever comes up in life. We have to know how to tap in to these, what I call elements of resilience. And what's nice is it's kind of like a muscle, right? If you don't have it today, doesn't mean you can't grow it. So some of these elements we have naturally, maybe we built them early in life, and then some we just learn to develop. So it's not something that's out of our reach. It's not something you have to go to school to learn. It's not something you have to have any special certification or background. You can be anybody of any age and adapt into these elements of resilience, build them within yourself so that when life happens, and it does, just like hurricanes, right? They happen. We don't like them. They come. We don't like them, but they come. We know how to face adversity and bounce back, but not just bounce back, grow forward. So that's really the idea, and the whole, I would say, spirit of my organization is to teach people how to grow, how to bounce back and grow forward. Hence the name Cultivating Hope, because with hope, anything is possible.
I love that, Hope. And so if you are not following Hope Cross on social media, before we dive into the episode, make sure you are connecting with Hope. One of the most authentic, inspiring, and open-minded people you will come across. If you have not had her with your organization, you need to, look in the mirror and be like, why am I not doing that? Let me go do that. Hope. So shout out your social media real quick before we jump into today's episode.
So you can find me on LinkedIn, just under Hope Cross. And usually whatever I have going on, I have on there. And I have my phone number and all of that. So Curtis, I know that's what I have going on. What do you have going on in the next couple weeks or couple months?
Oh man, nothing. I'm chilling. I got a little bit of break. One cool thing that did happen recently, it was announced that I'm going to be the keynote speaker for the Workforce Professional Development Summit in Orlando. And this is pretty cool because when I took on the title of Florida State Rep for SETA, my thing was I need to do more to have an impact on workforce development in the state I was born and raised. So to be able to now speak at one of the larger conferences in Florida as the keynote, that is very, very cool. And also next week, I am doing a live stream. And if you register to this live stream through StreamYard, we are going to hand out a free registration to the SETA conference that's coming in Florida next year. So usually that's around, I think, like $600 or so. We're going to comp that for somebody who attends our live stream, our SETA live stream next week. I'm also going to do a free training as part of that live stream and hand out books. So on the workforce side, we are moving, Hope. Got a chance to be the keynote coming up in September for the Workforce Professional Development Summit. And we're making some moves with SETA to make sure SETA has a larger impact on Florida, specifically on the workforce side. So, besides that, I'm just, chilling with the family, watching Disney movies,
Moana. No, that sounds exciting, Curtis. And can anybody register for this live?
Yeah, Hope, and that's a good point. And while you're talking for me, let me go ahead and grab the link, and I'll go ahead and put that in the chat so anyone can register for this webinar right now as we speak. It keeps going up. We have 192 people registered for this event. It's called Job Seeker Motivation, a free national webinar. This is open to the entire country. Let me go ahead and put the link in there. And again, we're gonna hand out a free comp registration to their conference in Florida, unless you prefer to go to the SETA conference that's in Mississippi coming up. We'll make that happen too. But we're handing out a free conference registration. We're going to be handing out books, and you're going to get some training. So this is one of those things. As soon as I became a Florida State rep for SETA Hope, I was like, what can I do right away? I got some big ideas, but what can I do right away? And doing a webinar / training, hey, we could do that in our sleep, right? So we're going to make it happen.
What's the date of that?
So that's next Wednesday. And that is at, let me just double check, 12 p.m. So 12 to 1 next Wednesday through StreamYard. You will have the opportunity to watch that through LinkedIn, Facebook, X, all the YouTube channels. But if you watch it through those social channels without registering, you won't be eligible to the comp registration at a conference, which this is a national conference. Hundreds and hundreds of people are there, people in this industry that you want to interact with, engage with. It's a good time. They have little parties, they have food. Like this is the place to be. So we're going to hand out a free registration for that and some books. So if you want to be a part of those prizes, you have to register through StreamYard. I just put the link in the comments. So go ahead and make that happen.
Awesome. Curtis, I'm going to register for that. I am traveling, but I'm wondering if in the airport I can log on. So, and if you've not got a chance to attend a SETA conference, I do believe, what is it? Southeastern Training Association. Did I get that right? Employment. Okay. It is a phenomenal organization. I've attended, I think, 3 times. The last time I attended was in Savannah, and I loved that conference. It was amazing. So, and I will be attending the one in Biloxi, Mississippi coming up. So
yes, make sure you rock it, Hope. You're representing here.
Hey, we got to represent Florida. So
yes,
so I love that. So yeah, if you're watching, I highly suggest, if you're doing anything with anybody in the workforce or even workforce reentry, it's really worth getting on and attending. And if you've never heard Curtis other than a podcast, get on and check it out, because Curtis brings a lot of value to individuals and organizations as a whole. So Curtis, I'm excited about that.
Thank you, Hope. Yeah, being on a stage in front of 200-300 people, it feels different. It hits different. So I'm excited about that. I like talking to you though, Hope, too, but you know what I'm saying. So let's, in the spirit of that, Hope, let's talk about what we're doing today for the episode. We do not have any guests because we wanted to do a longer version of something we played with on a previous episode. AWARE stands for asking why and requiring everyone, with the whole point of that acronym being the why. You can't get the solutions, you can't get the good conversation unless you have the ability to ask some good questions. So what I have in front of me, Hope, is, and I'm not going to put the wheel on the screen, Hope, because I don't want to mess with the optics of this going back and forth. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the wheel. Whatever question comes up, I'm going to go ahead and put that on the screen for the viewers so they see it. And then you and I, Hope, in real time, let's see what comes to mind and if we could answer this question. If we can't answer the question, let's just keep it moving. If we can, then we will. I have not looked at any of these questions in advance. Neither have you, Hope. So I'm hoping this will just be a little fun back and forth, and we'll see where the conversation goes. What do you think?
I'm excited. I actually really like the wheel of questions because it keeps us on our toes. And then it also has the opportunity to help those in the field and the leaders leading those people to, get some insight from our experience. So I really like this portion. So let it roll.
And what's up, Squirtle Jones? We got a Squirtle Jones joining us. We appreciate you, just like Squirtle Jones just did in the comments.
Squirtle Myrtle.
Squirtle Myrtle. You put your thoughts, your questions, what's going on in your world in the comments as well. If you have a question either about child welfare, workforce development, juvenile justice, maybe being in a helping profession, I don't know, you want to ask about Hope's painting in the back of that bull, whatever comes to mind, go ahead and answer or ask your question, and let's make it happen. So I say all that to say, Hope, let's go ahead and do this first spin if you're ready for it.
Let's do it. Let's rock it.
Dun, 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 dun. Spinning, 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 spinning. And it lands on.
Curtis, I can't see it.
Oh, no, because I don't want to go back and forth between screens. So it's just whatever it lands on, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the comments. And then I'm going to put it on the screen. Here is the first question that came up. There it is right on your screen, Hope. It is, what's one thing you've unlearned since joining this field?
Ooh.
One thing you unlearn. So there is anything when you first get into a helping profession or any job that you think you know, and then you realize after that maybe that's not the case. So I'm gonna give it to you first, Hope. What do you think? What's something you unlearned since joining the field?
So Curtis, we could talk for a long time about this, because if you get in the field and you don't unlearn some things, then I'm scared. But I would say the first thing that I unlearned, or maybe the main thing, is people do not end up in bad situations necessarily because of it. And I know we don't have time to unpack this, but it's not always because people is a series of unfortunate experiences and events and decisions. But at the end of the day, when we're looking at people in the helping field, the outside world tends to think they just don't want help or they don't want success. And that's just not true. They just have to have people like us and like those listening in really help them see that they can have success, how they can have it, and help empower them so that they can reach it. So I would love to expand more, but that's my quick version. What about you?
That's a good answer. I think that the first thing that comes to mind for me is that you can't fix people. You can't change people. That was a hard one for me, because when I first got into the field, I truly felt I was going to change the world by myself. And I was going to be able to, if I just did things the right way, I would get the outcome that I wanted. I had to learn very quickly that you could do things the right way. You could follow all the procedures, but in the end, people have responsibility over their own choices. So what I eventually had to learn is I am never going to take responsibility for someone else's choice. It's a hard thing to settle on sometimes, especially when you want so bad a different outcome. But it really is just judging yourself by the effort. Did you make decisions that you think improve the chance that you would help someone, and having some peace in that? So that would be the first thing that comes to mind for me. And then we got an answer from one of our viewers to have you will have preconceptions of the situation. So you got to kind of push those preconceptions aside and try to listen to what's going on. And I think that's almost the foundational part of what we do all the time, Hope. You will have some biases. You will think you understand what's happening. You will believe you're right. The feeling of being wrong is the same feeling as being right until you realize you're wrong. So, in fact, the more right you feel, the more likely you are to miss the things that are right in front of your face. So, and that doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you human, so can you take a step back from that?
Yeah. And I think that's really good. And Curtis, I think what you said is really good. We can't change people, but people can change.
Exactly.
But I also love that in the helping field, people tend to take ownership. That's where a lot of burnout comes from, taking ownership for the outcome, whether it is good or bad. But putting it back on the individual's shoulders, because at the end of the day, when you're no longer there, they have to drive their own ship, Yeah. So I love that.
That's a really good point too, that in the end, they'll be out of the program. They'll move on to the next part of their life eventually. So will they have the tools to continue that success? If they believe the success was theirs and they had to change, it's just more likely. So that's a good point too. All right, Hope, I just spin the wheel.
Ooh,
and here we go. Let's keep it going. Here's your next one. For those watching, we got a really good turnout right now today too. For those watching, go ahead and put your comments, or excuse me, your question in the comments, and we'll go ahead and get it answered. But here is the next one, Hope. It is, what's one misconception people have about the youth you serve? I'll start here.
Okay.
And I don't even think this is just about the youth. I think this is about people in general. But that is it's just as easy as doing the right thing. So, for instance, if a young person got into criminal trouble, or is feeling trapped by their situation, or isn't working because they feel they can't get a job, this premise that, well, if I was them, I would just make it happen and stop making excuses. Our trauma, our experiences, our beliefs, our feelings can create a reality for us that is not necessarily reflective of what's in front of us, but sometimes we can't see it. So I say all that to say is, young people who are struggling or maybe aren't making choices that are ideal, it's most of the time, Hope, and you could say from our experience, it's not they're just lazy, they're just not motivated, they just want to make bad choices. It's rarely about that. It's more of a nuanced, complex set of factors and experiences that have led them to see the world a specific way. And what our role is, and what your role is if you're in a helping profession, is to try to first understand their worldview and best match your support to the needs they have in that moment. And so what I mean by that is, are they not taking action because they don't believe success is possible for them? Do they need help boosting confidence? Is it because they failed before? Is it because they're not seeing how going in this positive direction can ultimately it could ultimately be more beneficial for them than what just choices are happening in this moment? Do they just not have anybody to support them in their life? Do they just not know what to do? I remember with one young person, I drove him down, and this was when we were working at Project Bridge. I drove him down to Clearwater Beach. And when we were going over the bridge, his eyes were so wide, he could not believe how gorgeous this place was. And the part that just bugged me out is he lived 30 minutes away. So this thing that is just eye-opening and blowing your mind, you're like, I can't believe this, is a 30-minute car ride to get there. But because his situation, he was stuck in this mindset that the only thing that's available to me is that what's right in front of me, he felt his options were limited. And you can't work towards something that you might not even see that it exists, right? So I say all that to say is, like, this misconception that people just are lazy or just unmotivated or they're just bad. It's just such an oversimplification of human behavior. So that would be one I would really like to squash right now if we can. Hope, what do you think?
So I am going to go with your answer, but I'm going to add to it. So the last few weeks I've done some trainings, and one was with the teen court, which are the young people who they've gotten in trouble, but they're not in the justice system yet. And then the other was with a group of middle schoolers, but some of those were in headed to high school. So those are the age groups that I was working with. And in both of these sessions, I started talking about goals and purpose. And none of the kids in teen court had ever been told that they could have a goal. They'd never been taught about goals. They'd never been taught they could do anything outside of what they saw every day in their community. So when I was sitting there with them at that table, I was the first person to bring awareness to the fact that they could do different, that they could do more. And the same with the other kids in the middle and high school. Those particular kids were not involved in the justice system. These were the highest ranking kids in middle and high school. And they had never been told that either, nor had they been told that they have a purpose. So I just want to say what you just said is exactly right. I think sometimes people look at young people, high risk young people, underserved young people, and feel like the decisions they make are because they are bad or because they don't want better. But the truth is just like you and me, if we don't know it, if we don't know something, we don't know until we do know. And that's the same with children and young people, is they don't know until they do know. And that's where the community and the village comes in, to let children and young people and even adults, because sometimes people make it to an adult age. I have an 80-something-year-old in one of my classes who had never set a goal in his life. Never. So I want to bring awareness to that. If you are looking at young people, or even people in your services, and thinking like this about what Curtis had said, then a lot of times it's not because they don't want it or they can't. It is a lot of times because maybe they don't know. And maybe you're the first person that's sitting in front of them telling them that their life can be more. And then, there's some guidance that has to happen to teach how, and to teach that they can, and to empower, right? So I think that question is really loaded. We could do a whole session just on that question right there, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I've got for the, quick answer.
I agree. I think sometimes, and not even if you're in a helping profession, we get so caught up in what someone is saying versus why they're saying it. You hear a young person say, I don't want a job. You get caught up on, what the heck? They don't want a job. They're lazy. But it's really looking at the underlining is what's motivating this behavior and getting some understanding. So I got another one. Hoping just spun the wheel. This is a really interesting one. So I think I'm going to pass it to you first before me, because I'm not even sure what my answer is to this. So let's go ahead and put it on the screen. Hope, what's a guilty pleasure or hobby you have that people would not expect?
Oh, you know what? I put pretty much everything on social media, but, I'm not a real deep person when it comes to my hobbies, but I'm a Floridian, and I love the beach. So I like to go kayak. I like to go to the beach. I like to walk around Siesta Key Market. Even if it's just for a couple hours, it is something that I'm trying to pack into my, I used to do it once a year, but now I'm trying to do it once every couple of weeks if I have time, just because it really does, it's self-care, but it's also fun and exciting and relaxing. And I have learned in life, Curtis, sometimes we think we have to do everything or nothing, so we put things off. But I have learned to pack a lot into 2 hours, so I don't feel that I have to have a 5-day vacation. I can go take 2 hours and enjoy myself and get just as refreshed. So that's my little guilty pleasures, is the beach, kayaking, the beach, that kind of stuff. That's
a healthy guilty pleasure, though. Hope you don't need to feel guilty about that. You feel great about your taking care of your mental health there.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't feel guilty, so maybe that's not an answer. So I don't know.
I don't know if I mean, when I think guilty pleasure, like, for some reason, this might be a dumb answer, but I was thinking about this French onion dip that I have in the fridge. It's not healthy for you, and anytime I buy it, it doesn't last long. So, getting that big thing of French onion dip, a good bag of chips, putting on some sports on the TV, and just being unhealthy and unproductive, I would say that's the guilty pleasure that comes to mind there.
I do like chips.
Yes. And then one of our viewers here said journaling.
Oh, that's not a guilty pleasure. That's nice.
Yeah, I actually wish I did that more often. I've done it occasionally, just commit to it, but there really is something good about. It's one thing like reflecting and thinking, but then when you put that down on paper, I think that's super helpful. So I agree with that one.
Yes, thanks for adding that, though, because I think that is very important.
All right, Hope, we ready for the next one? Keep it rolling.
Let's do it.
Oh boy, these are some deep questions. For context, Hope and I did not look at any of these questions in advance, and we want to hear your questions as well. So go ahead and put them on the comments. But here you go, Hope. This is an interesting one. What's a moment you'll never forget?
Are you passing this to me first, or you?
Yes.
Oh,
this is so deep, isn't it? Like, you can go in so many different ways with this question.
So I'll stick with the theme of like the clients that we work with. I'm going to say a moment I've never forgotten is the first young person I helped secure employment when I was working with Project Bridge. He had gotten the job and we got him a pair of work boots. And I didn't take him the work boots. We had the work boots delivered because something with the scheduling. So that night, I guess around midnight, he sent me a text of the picture of his boots and with the message that said something. I still have the message somewhere, but basically that these boots were saving his life. And he was going into construction the next day. That was his first job. And we are at a decade later, Curtis. This young man is still working in construction. And I will never forget the picture of those boots because I was thinking, how did these boots save his life? and now I understand why. But I didn't understand it a decade ago. But so that's a moment I'll never forget.
I love that. I'll fire off professionally and personally real quick. Professionally, when I first worked at a group home, and this was a co-ed group home, one of the most challenging jobs I ever had, not necessarily because of the kids, but because the culture at this group home, it was just a really toxic situation. But my very first day, the staff member there tried to wake up one of the young ladies by turning on all the lights and throwing her door open. And this is a co-ed group home, so there's boys in there as well. And she sits up and she looks at me and she thinks I did it. And this is my first day. I don't even know how to clock in yet, Hope. And she looks at me, thinks I did it. And she says, I'm going to beat your mother, beep, 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 if you don't close my beep, 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 beep door. Right. So in that moment, it was challenging for me because, you know, do you think, oh, this ain't the job for me? What is going on here? Right. Do you say, hey, you're not going to disrespect me? Do I mimic what the staff did and try to puff my chest out and, you know, do whatever? But what I did is I said, you know what, let me try the thing that I think works based on my experience, limited at that point, and what I read and all of that. And I just took her aside in a different room and I just said, hey, talk to me about what's going on. And she explained that it was her fault that she wasn't getting up for school. She takes responsibility for that, but it was an invasion of her privacy, that how that was going about. And that made her feel disrespected. And I had the other staff member with me who did this. And while she's talking, instead of me jumping in or arguing, I kind of just like put my hand up to signify to her whenever she's ready to let me talk, I'll talk. And then the young girl was like, finish. And she goes, okay, you can go ahead now. I gave her power in that conversation because how she was feeling. And during that conversation, the staff that just kicked open her door raises her hand. The one that was just like, you do what I say, just in this moment, now was stepping aback and modeling a different approach. And that was kind of a moment for me. It was like, wait a minute, I'm not a supervisor and I'm a new guy, but I can still have an impact on the people around me. And that was kind of a point for me, like, okay, so maybe that should be my approach moving forward, even when things are hard. So that was always an aha moment for me. And on a personal standpoint, still, I used to, obviously I travel so much with Speak for MC, and with our little girl, Maggie, really early on, every time I would leave, she would give me a toy to bring with her. And I was just like, oh, thank you, sweetie. I would bring it with me and then I would take pictures and I would have people take it back and I would show it. So she kept doing this each visit or each trip. And then finally it occurred to me, like, I never asked, why is she doing this? So I asked her, I said, hey, why do you always give me a toy to take with you? Like, what's going on there? And she goes, she's only like 3.5, maybe at this point, but she goes very clearly and she says, because then you have to bring it back. And I was like, ooh, like, it was just like, oh my, it was obviously emotionally, I was like, man, this is tough, but it was just the way she was thinking was so like this was her way to say, I know you're going to come back. I'm gonna give you a toy because you have to bring it back to me. Right. So that moment always, that's like you have these moments in your life that are like this foundational rocks for you. That's one of them as well. So that's a professional one and that's a personal one.
I'm not crying. You are. That almost got me.
Yeah, it got me. It got me. Yeah.
That's really special. I love that.
Oh, Hope, here we go. This one, you already mentioned this one. I know this is one that is a topic for you that you talk about now. So I'm glad it popped up. Here it is.
Ooh.
How do you avoid burnout before it starts? How do you avoid burnout before it starts? And then Miss Jones, I see you put a question in the comments. We're going to get to yours next. I think that's a good question. We'll get to that next. But how do you avoid burnout before it? This is kind of an interesting question because can you avoid it at some point? I mean, I feel like the longer you work in the field, it's just natural at some point for it to a version of it to happen. But tell me what you think, what comes to mind when you hear this question, Hope.
So it would take a lot of time to really unpack burnout and compassion fatigue. But the first step is really, I don't know, if you're new to the field right now, then you might have a chance at avoiding it. If not, chances are you might be right in the middle of it. And a lot of people experience it and don't even know. A lot of people blame the culture, the job, the supervisor, when it is really so much more than that. But I would say, number one, self-awareness. Well, let me back up. Number one is understanding what burnout is, knowing that it can happen in any helping field. Number two, self-awareness. And number three, boundaries. And I'm gonna really just elaborate just a little bit on boundaries. In the helping field, if you are listening, the chances are, Curtis, you said you thought you could change people, right? You thought you could save people. When I started, I thought the same. If I could have wore a cape, right? My first day, I would have wore a cape. Growing up, I wanted to be Superwoman, right? I always watched Superman and I wanted to be Superwoman because I wanted to help people. I wanted to save them. So I think a lot of people, when they get into the helping field, it's the same. They want to help, they want to save, they want to fix. And a lot of times that comes without putting boundaries in place. And if there are no boundaries professionally and personally, I'm not just talking professionally, I'm talking personally and professionally, burnout is more likely to occur. So putting healthy boundaries in place, knowing when you can step outside of those boundaries and when you need to not step outside of them, that's really, and I do have a boundary checklist, Curtis. If somebody's listening and they want that checklist, I created it. It is very helpful. It's what I have put in place for me because I would literally, me, I would answer the phone any time of day or night.
Yep.
I would do anything any time or day or night. And I think sometimes there's time that you still might do that. But what I learned when I started putting boundaries in place is the people that were always calling at 3 a.m. stopped calling at 3 a.m. and started calling at noon. So it taught me that emergencies don't always have to be emergencies, right? It's a good lesson to learn for the staff and a good lesson for the staff to teach the client. So putting boundaries in place, we could talk a long time about those boundaries. So if anybody's listening and they want a copy of that boundary checklist, if they can get us their email, I'd be happy to send that to them.
Yeah, well said. Boundaries, and I didn't even really think about that when this question, but I agree completely. That's something I've had to learn as well, Hope, just both professionally and personally, because I think part of me thought, is it selfish to not acquiesce to this request or to this need or to this question now? And I finally learned that other people don't get to dictate your line or the boundaries you are setting for yourself. They can dictate theirs, but they don't get to dictate yours. And I think if you get to a point where you're constantly responding to others' expectations, others' needs, even if your heart is in the right place, eventually your cup is going to be full. And parts of your life are going to suffer because you're constantly, responding to other people's expectations of you. So I think there is a balance that you can say, hey, I can't respond to this need in this moment, but I do want to talk more about how I can support you. Let's figure out a time that makes the most sense for both of us to address this, So I think that's a really good point. It doesn't mean you're selfish unless you're doing it to be selfish. Like these are all very nuanced questions, right? If you're just ignoring someone because you're like, they're less than me, or I don't need to help them, or I don't care about them, that's different. But if you're saying, hey, I can't respond to this need in this moment because it wouldn't be healthy for me to do so, and I couldn't even best help in this moment anyways, that's my boundary I'm setting. And that's okay. I think the main thing, I was talking to somebody earlier today too about this, is really all you can do is say, what are your core values? What do you believe in? Who are you when no one's watching? And do you feel you responded in a way that reflects those? And are you proud of the choices you're making? And I think that can go a long way. And that just kind of took me off topic a little bit. One thing I do want to say about burnout, Hope, is I do think it's somewhat of an unrealistic expectation to say you'll never feel like you're burning out. If you're in a helping profession where you're dedicating yourself to helping others constantly, there's going to be a wall at some point. It's when that wall happens, do you have some of those supports and places you're talking about? Are you being honest with yourself of knowing, hey, when do I need to recharge? Things like that. But I definitely agree with your answer, Hope. And then we got a comment as well. Knowing you are making a difference, even when somebody isn't seeing it, that's a big one. If you're not celebrating your successes or celebrating those small wins when you're helping people, you're 100%, it's going to be a path towards burnout, especially if you work in a field where it takes a really long time to see that change, like teachers,
Yeah. And Curtis, I like what you said about it's not selfish. So, and that's where the healthy boundaries come in. The boundaries really have to be healthy. Not to set a boundary and say necessarily it's 5:01, the phone goes off, right? 5:01 p.m. the phone goes off. But you might need to do that sometimes. Like I'm just saying it needs to fit your life. It needs to fit your needs, your organizational expectations. But putting those things in place to where they work for you, not so rigid that you can't grow, but not so fluid that you can't maintain and sustain life. So that's another topic that could be a whole session. So I feel like all of these questions could be a whole session.
Yeah, these are some deep questions, Hope. But on to the next. Let's see. And I got the other one already here, Hope.
Did you say there was a question somebody had asked?
Oh, yes. My bad. Let's go. Oh, right here. Hope. What is your most treasured moment or two that touched you and sent you on a journey of healing others? So we kind of talked about your best memory, but it sounds like this question is more about something that sparked you to maybe get into the helping profession or help others. Like, and that anyone who's in that field, almost all of them, unless they kind of just fell into it, have a why. Like something told them, you know what, I want to do a job that doesn't pay a lot, but I want to help and make a difference. So what moment, Hope, maybe told you, all right, I need to be in a field that helps other people?
Well, funny story is I did not want to be in this field. I was set on going into a field of journalism and criminal justice. So that was what I was doing. And it was complete, on my behalf, accident that I stumbled into a helping profession. And it was with my church. My church was going to do a volunteer day with 80 incarcerated juvenile girls at a facility, very high risk girls. And when we, you had to go through these gates and you had to be checked in, go through security. And I remember walking up the pathway. They had these little footsteps that were painted on the pathway. And I remember thinking, like, this feels good, this path. And I didn't understand what I was thinking. I was very young too. And then when I walked in, there was a window that oversaw the courtyard of these 80 girls walking around. And something just kind of tugged at my heart. And then I spent the whole day working with these girls. And one of the staff out there, I thought she was a staff member. She was actually the director of the organization, but I guess I thought she was just a staff. So she asked me if I wanted a job, and I told her no. And so she said, she kind of tricked me, Curtis. She said, "Hey, you believe in God?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, put the application in and just see what happens. And if it's not God's will, you won't get it. And if it is, you will get it." So I said, "You know what? I can go with that." And so I put the application in on Tuesday. I was called on Wednesday, interviewed on Thursday, hired on Friday, started on Saturday. And they put me on the field. I didn't even have keys yet because I had to go through all the procedures, but that's how quickly it was. And then I found out she was the executive director of the organization and had watched me. So she saw something in me that was good for the kids that I did not see in myself. So I don't know if that answers the question, because that aha moment, it was seen by somebody else before I saw it. So
yeah, and I think that happens a lot. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the misconception about youth. It's the same thing with us, is like someone opening on a door, asking a good question, planting a seed, having your back. Like all of these things could lead you down a path that otherwise wouldn't have happened. And that's why it goes back to just surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care about you and want to see the best for you could go a long way as well. I don't know if my answer is a treasured moment, but I do remember after high school, dropped out, got my GED, went to community college for a little bit. What didn't really have a path. I was just going because I was told that's the thing you're supposed to do. Worked at Walgreens, CVS, as a hospital, telemarketer. Like I was just bouncing around from job to job, and I really felt lost. And where am I supposed to go? And then I took an assessment. I believe it was called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which gives you a little insight on your personality. And when I took it, I'm not like, hey, this is going to tell me what I should do. But when it scored me as someone who tend to lean towards a helping profession, and specifically psychology. And to that point, I had never looked into psychology before. Like I didn't even have an interest in going to college. I wasn't a school person. I started looking into psychology, doing a deep dive, and there was this thing inside me that I got excited. Like for the first time ever, I got excited about the idea of going to school. And that excitement was that fire that then led that direction and then led to me getting in those helping professions. So I think going back even to the question about burnout, whatever that thing is that lights your fire, gets you excited and gets you really enthused to move forward, pour gasoline on that thing, do more of that thing, because that's the stuff that's really going to get you through the hard times. And then we got a comment here. It says, mine was a school project, and a lawyer friend who was my first donor said, this is your purpose. And then we got involved with Eckerd Connects and introduced me to Hope. Look at you, Hope, at Project.
I remember that, Christine. I remember.
All right, Hope. I just spun the wheel. Looks like we got about 10 more minutes or so. I'm enjoying this conversation. Before we get near the end, like Miss Jones, Squirtle is putting questions in the comments. I encourage you to do the same. And this is the next question that just came up on the wheel, Hope. This is a very interesting one. What is the hardest case you ever worked? I'll give you an example for me. And I don't know if I really like the term hard, because I think that categorizes the person who you have as someone who is difficult or challenging for, intentionally. But so when I hear this question, the first one I think of is actually one of the first cases I ever got when I started as a transition coordinator with youth on probation. And that was a young man who, I believe his first interaction with the juvenile justice, with law enforcement, was around 9 years old when we were reading his face sheet. 9 years old, got put in the back of a police car. At the point where I'm working with him, he has teardrop tattoos, 3 of them on his face, sleeve tattoos. You talk to him, and he talks from a place of, he has been hardened, right? The way he sees the world, he is. And what I learned in that situation is he just wanted to be heard. He just wanted to be listened to, and he just wanted someone that would help him move forward without judging him for who he was. So that case wasn't hard because of his personality. And one of the cool things with him is that you talk about memories. I always remember that he would call me like every Friday to tell me about the positive things he was doing, but he would call me so serious. He'd be like, "Hey, Curtis." I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's like, "Hey, I did my parenting class online. I'm telling you now." I was like, "Man, that's cool. Hey, man, I appreciate you." Like, but I'm not probation officer. He didn't have to tell me that. That guy that wasn't in my lane, but he was making progress, and he wanted to tell someone who saw the progress he was making. The only reason I kind of think of him when it comes to this question is because it was difficult to set him up in places that would give him a chance, right? I'm trying to get him a job, and he walks in there with, teardrop tattoos, sleeve tattoos, has this hard demeanor. It was hard to try to navigate to get people to look past that. But the reason I kept doing it is because I asked him a question I thought he was going to say no to. I said, "Hey, would you be willing to wear makeup to cover the teardrop tattoos?" And I was like, "Oh, there's no way," right? He was like, "Yeah, I'll do whatever it takes." And he wore makeup. And I was like, if he's willing, and people don't understand like how hard that would be for him. Like, you think it's just, no, you're talking about identity, that you're willing to cover up a part of your identity for this thing that could be positive for you. So when he did that, I was like, all right, we're going to make it happen. And we did make it happen. He got a job. And so hard, it was the case because he was difficult. No, but it was a challenge to try to get people to see beyond that exterior presentation.
Yeah, I love that story, Curtis. And in the helping field, that would be for the people who have a hard time seeing past that, or working past the difficulty maybe presented at the beginning of a case or the beginning of getting to know somebody. That's the opportunity. That's where the approach comes in, right? Where you kind of subconsciously in your mind say, okay, this kid can make it or this kid can't. And we have a tendency as humans to really get excited about the easy cases. The people that are like, maybe look the part already or already talk the part. I personally kind of like the challenge, though. I know you like a challenge too. So I know you do, but I love that story. So yeah. I would say for me, it wasn't a hard client. I don't think it was more hard situations that come around serving the clients. And what came to mind with this question is when we served a client with Project Bridge, and we served him for a very long time. Even after he was out of our program, we helped him, and he ended up passing away in a shooting. And I would say for myself and the team that served that young man, that was, when I think about my entire career of hard, that's the moment that comes to mind is getting that call. And it wasn't a staff that called me. It was a young lady who was in our services that had used to been in our services, and she called me. So that was really hard to deal with. And then also the team had a hard time dealing with it because this particular young man was a challenge, but he met and exceeded all of the challenges and was very successful in our program and even after. So I would say loss. I would say that tragic, unexpected loss, especially when it's a young life, is always like, that's when I think I will just take with me forever. And I still look at pictures and I still look at messages from this young man. But I would say for me, that would be it, is the loss. So.
Yeah, just on a side note, that speaking of hard, I remember worked with this one young man, and I was taking him to the gym, the mixed martial arts gym every week, driving him home, driving him to there. I mean, I was doing everything I could. And I think it was like 1 week from successful discharge, getting off probation, he ends up committing a crime, and they actually it was a sentence back. So it wasn't just going to juvenile detention; they were trying him as an adult. And it was just, and it goes back to our initial point that, do you feel that you did everything you could? Because there's going to be those hard moments, but if you take responsibility for other people's choices, it's just going to drag you down with it, and that's where that burnout could come.
Yeah. That loss, and then what you just said, it's loss, but a different kind of way, right? Like the incarceration, and I know people listening to us, Curtis. I know that they probably have experienced different kinds of that hard, right, or loss. So it's important. If you are listening in on at this moment, this is where you need a support system. This is where you need boundaries. This is where you need self-care. These hard cases and these losses, this is where you need to know how to take care of yourself so that you can keep pouring into others.
Agreed. Awesome, Hope. I got my question here. I also, Hope, just sent you a text. You take a look at that when you get a second here. Let me go ahead and put the next question in the comments. For those watching, put a question in the comments for us, and we will answer in real time for you. All right, Hope, here is our next question from the wheel. Speaking of questions, what's a question you wish more people would ask about the system? What's one question you wish more people would ask about the system? Wow. Hope. And I like how this question just says the system. So you could go any direction you want. Does something come to mind for you immediately?
Well, I think when I think of the system, I just think of the helping fields. Helping fields could be social work, corrections, reentry, child welfare, volunteer. It could be an EMS, firefight, any of those, vets, animal rescue. And so I would say not so much what is the question I want people to ask. I just want people to ask questions that they want to I want people to ask questions and really want to hear the answers to understand the systems. It's not so much one question, because people do come with misconceptions, preconceived notions. And a lot of it is just because of their experiences growing up, or media, or social media. They think the system is this one thing. For example, I go into prisons a lot in the adult world. So every time somebody asks me what I do and I tell them that, they get this look of shock on their face, and they wonder why I want to go into a prison. And I have to explain to them why. And it's because they have a misconception. And then their next question is always, don't you feel scared? And the truth is when I go into these prisons with the people that I go to see, more times than not, I feel safer there, because there's not a lot of people trying to go into the prisons to help. So I would say that they're very protective, that those men and the women are very protective of the people who come in to see them, that I would feel safer there than even standing in Walmart on a busy night in an unknown city, right? So just asking questions and really wanting to know and understand what makes the system, what makes the person, what makes the people of the system. That's my question. That would be my response to that question.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Hope is, Lupe Fiasco has a song where he said, "You can't take back the questions you never ask." So I'm all about asking all of your questions. I think you should continue to ask questions. Where my advice would be on this is just don't ask fake questions. Ask questions with a genuine interest in learning and discovery and being open-minded to the answer you might receive. I think sometimes we ask questions out of a place of anger or assumptions or biases, that if we're then asking a question that starts there, we're going to be more prone to block out any answers that don't align with what our expectations were of that question. So whatever question you have, ask it. But ask it in a way that it shows you have a genuine interest in the answer, and you're open-minded to an answer that might conflict what you think the answer is. But each person's system or situation is unique. Just ask questions. Like personally, right now, I'm working on an op-ed and a bill that I'm going to discuss next week on an area of our foster care system that I think can be improved, and I think there's a solution for. But before I'm doing all that, I'm asking a lot of questions. I've called people in the system. I've called people. I actually called DCF in Tallahassee. I called some local agencies here in my county, and I'm asking a lot of questions to try to determine what direction to go as I'm going in this particular direction. So I say all that to say is ask whatever questions you have. Questions are great. Questions are phenomenal. Just ask them in a way that increases a likelihood that you'll actually get an answer. And the way to do that is to be genuinely interested and open-minded to the answer of that question, even if it doesn't coincide with what you think should happen. And the other thing too, I was talking to someone recently, and Hope, I did lose your camera. You want me to put you back there, Hope, just as a heads up? There you are. Okay. I did talk to someone else recently, Hope, who called me and wants to make some changes in the system. But their questions that they were asking were framed in a very intense way. Like I think one of the questions was, why are they so corrupt? Was the question, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, look, maybe they are. Like, I don't know. I don't know your situation. And if I was in your situation, I might also feel that way, right? So I get it. Now, the next part of that is framing your question that way going to increase the chance that you learn something and that you get an answer that really adds value for you. The answer is no. If you come at someone with a question, like, they're just not going to be open-minded to the answer because they're worried what you're going to do with it, because you're already coming from a place of attacking someone. So whatever your questions are, if you're asking to a young person, if you're asking it to a stakeholder, ask your question in a way that expresses a genuine curiosity in the answer, and be open-minded to an answer that might not necessarily reflect why you're asking that question in the first place. But I'm definitely an advocate for asking. Do not, you can, if you ask a bad question, you can apologize later, but you can't apologize for a question you didn't ask. So that would be my guidance on this particular question.
Right. And I like that, Curtis, because asking questions isn't the point behind it isn't to push people in a corner or to prove a point. It's to understand. And when the understanding can happen, or at least the conversation can be had with open minds from all parties, then real change can happen. So we have to really be self-aware. Are we asking the question because we want to see the change, or because we want to be right? And wanting to be right doesn't change anything. It just boosts our ego a little bit. But the idea here is to create change, to create hope, to create better systems for the clients that we serve. And at least that's my goal. I know that's your goal. I believe it is the goal of most people in any kind of helping field. It's just a matter of being self-aware about why we are asking certain questions, how we're asking the questions, and then if we're actually open to real conversations, even if they're hard.
100%. And just one quick example of this, Hope. I remember I had a young man over in Sarasota near your area, and I was doing an intake at his house, and we were doing an intake in the front yard. And one of the very first questions I asked him is, what do you think you need to do to get off probation? And he looked at me so pissed off and he goes, if I knew that, I wouldn't be on it. And I realized, you know what? That was a fake question, because I wasn't asking a question to genuinely like understand his perspective. I was asking a question to try to put him in a position to answer, so then I can say, well, all right, we need to do this thing that you're not doing. It was more of a, I'm asking this to solve your problem, as opposed to I'm asking this to genuinely understand you, you know? So I say all that to say is I ask bad questions all the time too. We all do. It's human nature. It's just really stepping back and trying to be self-aware and saying, all right, does the way I'm asking this and what I'm asking, is it genuine? And it will increase the likelihood the person will actually feel open to answering.
Right. And that's a great example. If I knew, I wouldn't be here talking to him.
Yeah.
Like that.
I even told him when he said it, I was like, man, that's a good point. I said, my bad. Let's circle back. Let me ask something else, you know? And I wasn't trying to be like, I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. It's just, I was more focused on the direction I wanted to go as opposed to where he was, you know?
Right.
So. All right, Hope, we got a hard stop at 1:15. So let's just do 2 more quick questions and wrap this thing up if you're good with it.
All right, let's do it.
Here's our next one on the wheel. Is it normal to feel unqualified or overwhelmed at first? Hope, I'll start. Ooh. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. That's all I got. Yes, it is. Absolutely normal. Hope, off to you.
100%. In fact, I have to be worried about anybody who is new to this kind of field, these kind of fields that are so broad that they don't feel like they have something to learn. Because if you come and you think you have all the answers, then you're not open to learning. And that's what this is about. This is about learning. I still remember a lot of my first days in all of my jobs. And I always had the desire to help people and to change the world. And I knew that I could, but I still felt under, I guess unqualified because, you know, I was new, but that helped drive me to learn. That helped drive me to observe, to have conversations, to ask questions, to do my own personal research. You know, I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I would always tag on with the leaders that I would see and watch them and try to see how they do things and try to replicate. If I saw it worked, I would try to replicate it. So yes, it is normal to feel unqualified. It is normal to feel overwhelmed. It's kind of like working out when you have never worked out. You don't go into the gym and pick up a 50-pound dumbbell and think, unless you're just naturally very strong, right? But you don't go and pick up the heaviest weight and start there. You start with the weight that gives a little resistance. You work with that resistance until it becomes easy, and then you go to the next stage of resistance. And that's the same thing with this field, is if you have resistance, that's a good thing. You're going to notice it gets easier. And then hopefully you're putting yourself in more challenging situations like that are more resistant so you can grow. Because if it's too easy, then you're also not growing. So I would say not only is it normal, it's expected. But I do believe, as far as the overwhelm, if you're taking care of yourself in the field and putting boundaries in place, you should be able to navigate the overwhelm. Not that the overwhelm's not going to come. You should be able to navigate it. I don't know. I know that's a longer answer than yours, but.
No, well said. And the only thing I'll say to piggyback off that is also kind of normalize how you're feeling. It's sometimes when we're going through something and where we feel less than, we think it's incredibly unique to us, where many people have experienced and gone through something similar. So I say all that to say, talk to somebody who's been in the field. Like, even if there's been things as a parent where I'm like, what is going on? Like, how is this? What am I supposed to do? Why is this not working? And then you like see a Facebook meme or like a Facebook reel come across, and it's almost the exact same situation. And it has like thousands and thousands of likes and comments. Like, all these people are like, oh, I can relate to this. And it helps to kind of get out of your own bubble that, oh, hey, people are going through things too. So seek someone's guidance, talk to someone. It's not just you alone on that island unless you feel like you are.
Curtis, I want to add one thing to that. If you're a staff that's seasoned and the new people come along, this is something I was guilty of. It's also important to realize that it is normal for the newer people to feel unqualified and overwhelmed, and to not expect them to jump to exactly where you are when they've been there 3 hours, or even 3 days or 3 weeks. That they have a learning curve, and you've been doing it for a long time. So you've been in the gym every day working out, you can handle the higher weights. The people coming in after you, they've got to get to where you are. So I just want to put that in there as well.
Agreed, Hope. Well said. All right, here's our last question, Hope. Let's knock this one out quickly. And here we go. We've had, this has been the strongest viewership that we've had since this has started. So shout out to everybody. Shout out to everybody watching, and then shout out to the people who watched after the live, because I know if you were busy and you're checking with us later. Go ahead and put your comments in later too, and we'll get it back to you. But here's our last question of the day, Hope. What's one thing a youth said to you that you will never forget? I have one that immediately comes to mind, Hope, if you want me to go first.
Go ahead.
I had a young man I used to visit at school over here in Pinellas County when we were working with Project Bridge, and he did not want to do a lot. And he was not a fan of me. He wasn't especially excited when I would come. He would get annoyed with all my questions. His lack of action, he would attribute to everything around him and not necessarily him. I felt he was only meeting me because he didn't want to get locked up again, right? So finally, I go to meet with him, and this is like 3.5 months in, and I tell him, hey, I just got promoted to program manager. And this is when I became a program manager of Project Bridge on the West Side. And I said, because I got promoted to program manager, you're still going to see me. You're not going to see me as much like doing these visits. We're going to have someone else help with it. And he looks at me with like this real like sarcastic tone. He's like, yeah, I know why you got promoted. And I'm positive he's going to say some slick, kind of like disrespectful answer, right? You know what he said?
What?
He said, you got promoted because you never give up on kids and you never gave up on me. And I was like, I'm my initial reaction, like, are you playing with me right now? Like, what do you know? But that always stood out to me because from the outside, it looked like I was making no difference. I was doing nothing. This person hated me, but they appreciated what I was doing. I was doing the things that I thought could help them. So when he said that, even no matter what he thought about me, his perception of me was, well, this guy don't give up. And he doesn't, and then he didn't just say you don't give up on me, you don't give up on kids. So on the hard times, that's one I always kind of got in my back pocket to reflect on that will never leave me.
Wow. I love that, Curtis. Yours is pretty similar to mine. And but the young man I talked about a few moments ago about the hardest time, I have messages, and one of the last messages that he sent to me before we ended up losing him was, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was something along the lines of, he was reaching out to thank me for all I'd done and saying he knows why my name is Hope, because I give hope to kids like him. And I'm good at what I do, and it's what I'm meant to do. And it's funny when we hear these things from the kids, because a lot of times we don't hear them right away. This was years for this particular kid. It was a few years into serving him. So, and sometimes I think we don't ever hear it. They might think it, They might know it, they just may not know how to say it, or even that they could or should say it. But I do think that stands out to me, and I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget it, one, because I have messages. So, but it's good to know. And I will say, if you are a client and you are being helped in any helping field, reach out to those who have helped you along the way, whether it was a teacher, a bus driver, a social worker, an officer, whoever it was. Reach back out and just let them know how they made an impact in your life, because you never know what that person might need to hear today. It could be a text, it could be a message. I would just reach back out and give them a sentence or two and let them know how they helped you.
Absolutely. Well said, Hope. So we have reached the end. We have gone 5 minutes over our determined time, which, I mean, it's to be expected at this point with me and you, Hope. You know, this reminds me of our meetings back in the day. It would just keep going and going. I really enjoyed this episode, Hope. I think we'll talk offline to figure out a way to consistently bring this type of approach to the show. That it's been the highest viewer engagement too, as well. So I think there might be something there. For those that watch live with us, we truly appreciate you. For those watching later, and if you have a comment or something you want to add to one of our answers, go ahead and put that in the comments. But before we go, Hope, any final announcements or messages for those out there?
I would just say, you know, I really like these questions. I think they're very helpful. And I would say anybody watching, whether you've watched live or you're catching up later, if you've listened to a question or you have your own and you want to know more about something, let us know, because I'm sure that either Curtis and I could put something together to maybe elaborate on some of these questions. Because like you've heard me say, some of these questions could have been a whole session. Yeah. Maybe we can do something that elaborates a little more on some of these questions, but we need to know what you want to know more about in order to make that happen. So that's all I got.
And these answers are our answers. They're nobody else's answers. So your answer might be completely different, and that's okay. That's how we get to some conversation and eventually some change. So I appreciate you, Hope, as always. We'll connect soon. Appreciate to the audience joining us for this one. Miss Jones, thank you for being so active in the comments. We appreciate you as well. Everyone have a safe, healthy weekend with your family, your friends, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, Hope.
Bye.
What if we helped people who help people? Speak for MC provides training, motivational talks, personal reflections on parenting, resilience, and working through adversity. Welcome to Speak for Maggie's Change. Hit that subscribe button.